I think we should basically more make this is a weekly conversation that generally you and I are there as much as possible, but just about interesting things in real estate.
Yep,
Then we're
let's do
good.
it.
But I know what we wanted to talk about today was lead sources and kind of the
Hmm.
different stuff around that. Basically, this is something we get talked about all the time. As an interesting one, we're like, when you're doing marketing to agents, everybody just wants lead gen and lead conversion, but it's always like lead gen first and then lead conversion. And it's like, even if that's not the stuff they actually need, it's what everybody wants. So you end up having to talk about it more.
Yeah,
Part of the fun.
like I think that the lead stream that everybody wants is people call them, right? Like
Yeah.
when as a marketer, when agents talk to you, like they probably just flat out say, I want appointments.
Yeah. Like typically the most common thing we always hear is all we want is quality leads. If I can get them on the phone, I can close them. And I mean, statistically, that's not true. But I mean, no one also has a great answer. Like what I've always had to start doing, just after years of dealing with this, is saying, what to you is a quality lead? And the definitions you get of that are so all over the place that like one thing that needs to happen in this industry is a standardization of what people mean by saying different things, right? Like even the term top producer. If you ask 10 different agents what that means to them, you're probably going to get 10 different answers of what a top producer is.
It's totally relative to who they spend time with,
Yeah.
right?
Like it's,
Like like I think that if I was just spending time with people in my office, that would be a very different perspective than going to conventions.
yeah.
And sometimes like you get into the room with some of the people that do this like top in the world,
Yeah. Like I
and
remember
then
I
it
was
really
at
gives you perspective.
early in my career, I went to an office, and their top agent, like literally the number one agent in their office was there, and they did 40 deals a year, which is very good in the area they were in because it's like 25K commission per deal. That's a pretty nice little number for one person and an admin.
Fair.
Now, if we're looking at places I've been now, networks I've been in, events I've been to, 40 deals is kind of, I wouldn't even qualify that as a top producer yet.
Yeah, I was trying to think about like I think that in my marketplace,
Yeah.
it would take about the year that I did it, I think it would have taken about 50 to 55 deals to get you into the top 5% of the
Yeah.
Edmonton board. So smaller transactions here, right?
Yeah.
Like
Well, that's this was a
those
debate
are
when I worked at Remax head office was because like the awards, right? Everyone, if you're in a smaller town, you don't like that it's by GCI because you can sell a 10% of the number of homes in a big city and make the same amount, whereas they have to sell 100 homes to make the same as a Toronto agent doing 15, 20. But there's also so much more competition in Toronto. Arguably, it's harder to get those 15 to 20 than it is to get the 100 in a small town.
I think the work rate's just in different places.
Yeah. So it's
You got to
all,
choose your grind. So
yeah.
in a small town, you got to grind for volume. In a large
Yeah.
city, the grind is going to be upfront in getting the number of appointments that you need to
Yeah.
get.
And one thing on the like lead source topic too, I think we have to acknowledge for people, because a lot of people don't realize this, is like the market you're in could change what the best source is
Oh, for
and
sure.
what the tactics work. Like the amount of people I see who like copy an agent who sells like recreational properties in like cottage country and see like insane success they're having from a source and then try to copy and it doesn't work. I'm like, yeah, you're selling suburban homes with a cottage strategy. Like it's a completely different market, completely different tactics that work. Typically, the more rural you go, the less sophisticated the online competition is. So things that wouldn't work in a big city with a lot of competition will work in those places. Like we had a call with someone recently who I was trying to like do the keyword research of like what are other people spending, what's kind of like the bid rates. People weren't even buying ads in the entire area. We started running ads and we were essentially the only person. Like these were the cheapest clicks you could get. Like you were getting high value keywords at like 15 cents.
So that's also something about knowing where to compete.
Yeah.
A lot of people will copycat others that they see, and that will draw them in to competing in the highest competition spaces.
Yeah.
So if you, because you see a lot of mailers, you decide to do mailers, you're just joining the noise.
Yeah.
That's like an outright mistake. And also trying to compete with an incumbent at where their power point is, like you'd have to pay 10 to 1 to
Yeah.
compete with them when they have like home tactic advantage.
Yeah, there's a woman who's brilliant marketing. She does like marketing for like Mark Cuban, Luka Doncic, stuff like that. Like does a lot of high-end people in their marketing. And the way she framed it is homesteading is like you got to go build your homestead somewhere. The way that I'm a World War II history guy, World War One. So I use the analogy of like Normandy, like you need to establish your beachhead. Like before you can go to the rest of Europe, you got to get your little piece to supply yourself from, right? Like, and that could be any one source because like you need to get, like we were talking last week, like to that 0 to 30, like that's your beachhead in the industry to like start getting traction, start getting money you can reinvest into things. You need to have that. And then you can start maybe going a little bit wider from there. But you need that initial foothold. Like even when I was selling and I was doing first time buyers, arguably as my niche, you could make an argument that's not narrow enough when you're starting out. Like I know people who do used to do like first time buyer women buying condos who are like in marketing. Like really because they knew like they came from that world. They knew and in
Mm-hmm.
Toronto there's a lot of them, but like there's a lot of single women who made very good salaries who could afford to buy a condo on their own.
Mm.
And she made very specific marketing. Or like we had another woman in my office who did divorce women over 40. That was her specialty. We had to work on her
So
stuff a
that
little bit, but
Yeah, so when you're talking about like choosing that example, that's going to play both in your marketing and in your sales.
yeah,
So by choosing a niche, it's a little bit easier to control where you're going to approach.
yeah,
But you also have to choose a niche that's going to be able to have the frequency of opportunity you need. So you kind of want to try a few things when you start out. Like most agents would consider kind of standard lead streams
yep.
uh, to be things like open houses, and right now it would probably be even your brokerage would have a source for online leads at some capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably less or there's more brokerages that don't provide anything than there are that do. Um,
Okay.
Having been in a lot of brokerages, I think if you got to the higher end ones where it's like more expensive to be there, they on average do provide more. Um, but having been on the inside, because a lot of them come to us for like, what, how can you boost this up? How can you help this? Most of them aren't getting anything from it though,
Okay.
which is a
So,
separate discussion, I guess, to a degree. But I see it as the setup's wrong. And this is like what I talk to brokerages about when they start setting up leads for their agents is they aren't generating a ton. Like they might generate 50 in a month, 100 in a month, and then they round robin it out to the brokerage. So like each agent, depending on the size of the brokerage, might not even get one per month.
and some of the agents that are receiving them don't care to receive them,
Yeah.
and some of the agents that need them aren't getting enough.
Yeah. So like the
But a lot
best
of them
I've
don't
seen,
understand what the conversion process would be like anyway. So they just basically say the same thing that we hear over and over again, which is the leads are shit.
yeah, that's the most common. This is the running joke for vendors. Like we've had this discussion. Like if you go to a vendor table where it's vendors like me who provide leads for people, um, it's we kind of have a running joke of that person's been at this company and they said, all right, their leads are shit. I'm going to this company. Their leads are shit. I'm going to this company. And like I've had the times where people have come on like a sales call to me, like, well, I used to work with this company, their leads were shit. Then I worked with this company, their leads were shit. Or this company. Now I'm coming to you. And I can already tell you if I let you come on as a client, which I don't anymore, I know 3 months from now, 6 months from now, they're going to be going to the next company saying, I'm just being added to that list of people where they said their leads are shit.
And that's why the conversation needs to change a little bit
Yeah.
because let's start by saying that the quality of any lead is based on the quality of response.
Yeah.
So if somebody was coming to me asking the same question, which is like, how can I get quality leads? I'd be like, okay, well, what do you set up for? And they'd be like, well, what do you mean? And I'd be like, okay, well, if somebody came in as an inquiry right now, and this was your average day, when would you get back to them? Are we talking like, is it going to be an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours? Like, what is that going to look like?
Even that would be pretty good compared to some of the ones like we worked with
Might be
this
days.
team years ago. Years ago. They were doing about 200 deals a year in an area where the average commission was like 40,000. So they did very well. And they had us generating leads, and the amount of listings they had, very easily we were getting them 200 a month on like 600 spend. So 200 leads a month. They weren't spending a lot to get it overall. So we got them 1,000 leads in 6 months. They didn't close a single deal. And we could ask, it took us a while to get this feedback, but finally did. And we're like, all right, well, let's review more in depth your follow up system. Because all they ever told me when I asked about it was, we got great agents. Don't worry. We'll take care of that. Uh, that's when I learned that that's a red flag if people say that. This was early in my career. This is like the first couple of years. Um, and what their system was all the leads, their team lead at some point within the first couple days would go through each lead manually and then just assign it to an agent on the team. And the assigning thing was like, okay, this is an Italian name. I'm going to assign this to an Italian agent on the team. Well, this is a Chinese name. I'm going to assign it to the Chinese agent on the team. There's an Indian name. I'm going to assign this to the Indian team member. And then that person, over the course of the next 4 days, would make one phone call.
Yep.
And you're
So,
like, yeah, that's why you got 0 on 1,000 leads. Like,
right. And I think that that might be the majority. So
yeah,
when we take apart what they're doing wrong, the first thing is the speed of response. So if somebody is open to exchanging their information on online websites, why do you think that they're only doing it with your website? You're in a race with somewhere between like normally 5 to 10 agents. And many of those agents are going to be what I call one hit wonders. So they're
yeah,
going to shoot one phone call, and if it lands, they'll talk to the person. And if it doesn't, they will never hear from them again.
yeah.
Then there's going to be different groups that do this with different levels of intensity. If you wanted to say, like, hey, what would work the majority of the time? Like, where would I start to say that when I get a lead, I'm going to get to industry standard? And what would you say industry standard is for web leads for conversion?
So I actually get really passionate about the speed to lead thing. So I can
Mhm.
go on some rants about this because like when I got in the industry now a dozen years ago, it was 30 minutes was what everyone said, then 15, then 10, then 5, then 2, then 30 seconds, then instant, right? Like that's how the discussion's gone. You've been around long enough, you've been there for this discussion for the most part. You've been online, you study a lot of business stuff. So you've probably heard the story. Have you heard the story of the Houston airport and their
Which
baggage
one?
carousel?
Tell me more.
Okay, so and this is one where like I was kind of already doing this stuff and it put it all together for me. So they were getting a lot of complaints at the airport that people were waiting too long at the baggage carousel to get their bags. And so like, okay, we got to get rid of those complaints. This is the only place we're seeing complaints basically outside of like stuff that's within arguably our control. People always have some complaints that are out of control, but this was a big one for them. This is like the number one complaint. So they kept bringing in people to fix it, and they would like make it 10% quicker to get the bags to the carousel than 20. Eventually, they got 50% reduction in the amount of time it took to get it from the plane to the carousel. And that's a big deal. Like to cut that much time out of it, which you hear about an agent like, oh, I did this to increase my response time. I did this, I did this. And it's like that constant battle of speed to lead. It's speed to get
But
the
let me
bag to the
guess,
carousel. So they
50% and they still complain.
not a single percentage drop in the amount of complaints. So
Now,
they
this is
brought in someone
because,
new who
before
cut
you
the
finish
complaints.
this,
Yeah.
because the average consumer won't notice a difference at all unless it's 10x difference.
Yeah.
So they only got to 50%. They didn't hit awareness level. Keep going.
So they brought in a new consultant who took a different approach. Complaints went to zero. And all they did was they made the walk from the plane to the carousel twice as long.
Bingo.
And that's all it is. Now, let's take this to lead gen. I talk about this all the time. 99% of real estate websites, someone opts in on like a listing of yours. All that happens at that point is says, thanks, we'll be in touch. Right? Like that this is the start of your relationship with
So
them.
that means they're instantly at the baggage carousel,
Yeah. And
right?
now they're
So
sitting
they
and
so
waiting for you.
and now they're waiting, and any time is too much time.
Exactly.
And so
So
how do you make the walk longer?
so there's two things, two approaches we take. One, and I just gave them fun names because I do that. The first one we call the double dip offer because I'm a Seinfeld fan. And this is you just give them another offer. So let's say they reached out about 123 Main Street. Now we have a page that says, great, our team's going to reach out to you at 123 Main Street. But do you need to sell your current home to be able to buy your next one? Enter your address below, and we'll tell you what your home would sell for. And we'll send that report right to the inbox you already gave us. They fill that out, and then you send them to a page like, great, we're going to send you a report on what you get for your home. Do you want to get a copy of our guide on how to get your home ready for sale? Great, we're going to send that to your inbox now, and then you can help you get your home ready for sale like a professional does. And you keep bringing them through different steps of what they could do. Now, like in an ideal world, you'd even have that on like video where you're walking through like essentially like a video sales letter where they come to that page. It's like, here's a video kind of detailing what these next steps could look like for you. But they've just become a lead. It's the start. Like I use the dating analogy of like it's like going up to someone in a bar and you go up to a girl and you're like, hey there, I'm Andrew. What's your name? They say their name. They'd be like, great, I'll be in touch. Then you walk away. Like you can't do that. You have to like, can I buy you a drink? Can I sit down? And that's where most people, I think, they screw up very early on and leave a lot of money on the table. Is that initial thing when someone becomes a lead, all that happens is a thanks will be in touch. Some have like text messages and emails that go out right away, which is great, and they get calls fairly quickly. But like you basically have to have those set up to always go as fast as possible, or you're gonna get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like if you have things that go out and keep them busy, it also gives you buffer time to get to them.
Mm-hmm.
And like you can even then delay your messaging, like your text message that goes out. Like if you send them to a page to find out what their current home would be worth, you could even then delay your first message for 5 minutes to give them time to do that. But you walk them through these different steps to get to where you want to go. And you're collecting this great information. Like, I'm going to find out, are you a seller in this process? And if someone opts in on 3 or 4 different offers in a row, that is going to be like one of the best quality leads you ever had.
Hmm.
And then the other way to do it is what we call the Godfather offer, which is this actually comes from a marketer named Nicholas Kuzmich. And the idea is they opt in on like a lead magnet, and that could be a listing, free home eval, whatever it is. The thank you page now is what's an offer they couldn't refuse to book a call in your calendar today? So that could be something like, hey, if you book a call with us, we're going to give you, as part of our regular package, this, and this. Right? Like it could be, we'll send out cleaners to your home and fully clean your house before it goes on the market at no extra cost. It could be like clients who try this, they use things they've already used, like that they already offer all their clients. They just now put it in writing. Book all of us today and we'll like HD photo. Like randomly, we tried this with one client. The test was photos. All they wanted to put was we'll send a photographer out to your home to get photos. And then we changed it to HD photos and the conversion rate went up. Just adding HD bumped up the conversion. So those little things like that. But
I
we're
think it's
like,
so funny
yeah, it's
because, like,
wild.
have you ever looked at it roles reversed and been like, "Oh, that's how they got me."
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm so aware of it now. And like when I get got, basically, I'm like, oh,
Mm. I love it.
okay, like I probably told you about like the Dan Martell coaching stuff.
Hmm.
Like if it got me and it did it so well that I even sitting there, I'm like, I
You son of
just
a bitch.
I
Yeah.
just went into his funnel to literally see how he did it because I heard it was really good. So just sheer
Hmm.
like I was just gonna essentially curiosity, I wanted to see how he did it. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I think he's got me. And it was
That's
so
interesting.
impressively done.
So let's talk about the handoff here because there's a couple of different ways that you can get online leads and engage them, like you were
Yeah.
saying, is make them additional offers, build systems, right?
Yeah.
But now, what happens when they come in? You know, there's people that have confusion about email, call, text, smoke
Yeah.
signals. all of these types of things. Do you hear a lot about that on the marketing side?
Yes. The main mistake I often see there is it's a one size fits all approach for every lead source. Is
Mm.
every source that comes in gets the exact same follow-up sequence. Whereas I would rather customize it to like, and they can be like similar theme. So that's the first mistake is like the automated side is just one size fits all. The other one I've seen happen a lot that I think cause a lot of issue. I'd love to hear your take on it. Is they don't really update the ISAs with the context of where they're coming in from. They basically just say like, "Here's your new leads." We've seen this with
Mm.
teams where they've just like added in new campaigns. They've asked us for a campaign, we set it up, and this leads are coming in, and then like a couple days later, we get a message from like the ISA being like, what are these about?"
Yeah.
And
Because
so
that
like,
totally changes. Because somebody's responding to an offer, and then if they talk to someone that has
yeah,
no idea what they're responding to, that's
yeah,
when like they really feel disjointed, and a
yeah.
lot of the time they feel like a bait and switch.
Yeah. I've seen this with teams, which definitely hurts conversion rate, where like let's say we were marketing Hack and Co. and the Godfather offer came in on the secondary page once they opt in, and it says jump on a call with Taylor to talk about how to get your home sold today for the most money. I've seen teams who do that because like you will get more calls booked if I put your face and name next to the book a call link. Guaranteed. Might not be like an exponential increase, but you will see an increase. I can guarantee it. But if now you're not on that call, they've lost trust immediately, right?
Totally.
So like you can do book a call with a team member,
Yeah. But
book
you
a
have
call
to
with
be
one of
transparent.
Taylor's experts.
Hmm.
But if you say book a call with Taylor, it's same like if I say book a call, like I either have to say it's with me or I have to say book a call with someone on our team.
Yeah.
Like you can't
So
bait and switch like
I
that.
like the idea of like changing the wording. You
Yeah.
know, when we talk about our phone number, we normally call it the fast agent hotline
Yeah.
because we have a team and we can respond faster than the majority of the agents in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about how it kind of hands off, I think that having people that know what the call should go like is going to be key to any online lead source.
Yeah.
So if somebody was coming in because the lead drops because they're showing interest in a specific property, the way that I want to set that up is going to be very specific. So the first thing is the opening. Where I see people make mistakes is they ask people how they are before identifying who they are.
Yeah.
You know, hey, is this Andrew? Hey, Andrew, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
It's just a super suspicious response, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure if I should tell you how I'm doing.
Yeah.
The other mistake that I see is agents that run like a too long an opener
Yeah.
where they're talking like 20 seconds and the person's like, I accidentally picked up this phone. I'm on the toilet right now. I'm going, you know,
Yeah.
much more likely. So, what we have used after testing so much is, hey, is this Andrew? Hey, Andrew, it's Taylor from Brand Name.
Yeah.
Is it a bad time for a call? So the reason that that seems to function is one, they know who I am and where I'm from.
Yeah.
And then instead, like, so I want to let you in on a little secret. There's no good time for a sales call. So why ask if it's a good time?
This is a big thing Phil Jones talks about. We had him in for our clients a couple of years ago, and he actually specifically said, "Don't say that." Of like the, is
Ever.
it a bad time for a call? Is it a good time for a call? Is like you do not use that
I
line.
love is it a bad time for a call? It works
Yeah.
so well.
Yeah. So he
And
thinks
that's
it's
because
a bad. I'd love for you guys because I'm not a sales enough expert to discuss. I'd love for
you know
you
what?
two
He
to
probably
debate
has a
that.
better opener than me. Like he's Phil Jones.
Possible.
But
It's what he
when
gets paid to
the
do.
reason that I like is it a bad time is because when you play the negative, people are naturally going to be contrary and play the positive. No, it's not a bad time.
Yeah.
And they don't want to admit it's a bad time. Like they're like, or they'll tell you, oh, I'm at work right now.
Yeah.
But sometimes that doesn't even mean that you should stop. You'd be like, oh, yeah, I was just calling you because of this.
So that's what his
So
kind of point is. You just go straight into that. You skip these at a bad time. You just go right into what you're talking about. Make them interrupt you if it's a bad time.
fair. So you could definitely try that. But then
Yeah.
is your reason to call. And that's why you need to know the lead source.
Yeah.
So right now in my marketplace, inventory is hard to find. So that's going to be my approach. Is like, oh, I'm calling everybody who comes to our website because they're having trouble finding properties. Are
Yeah.
you having trouble finding a property? Because I can just reach out to what I know the majority of people are struggling with. They're on real estate websites because there just isn't enough to look at, and they're trying to find a website that maybe has something that they haven't seen before, and it's not working for them. So that's also why you want to be in the web lead game, is because almost everybody starts their search online.
Yeah. And
But then landing it from there and turning it into a conversation is key. So once you do that opener and say, hey, we're calling because it's low inventory, if you're not in a market where it's low inventory, then you could simply talk about the listing that they inquired on. And the way I like to open that is, was there anything you couldn't see in the pictures?
yeah.
Hey, was there anything you couldn't see in the pictures? And then they're going to be like, oh yeah, I couldn't tell if the living room like was open to the kitchen or this or that. And you
Yeah.
might have information on that house, or it just might be the way that you close an appointment.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? We should go see.
Yeah, there's a lot of like the Phil Jones way, because I use a lot of his sales training for my clients, for myself. Is he has a really simple opener framework, which is just,
You
well,
do?
yeah, you got it. Polite introduction, mutually agreed upon fact, easy to answer question. Like it's,
Hmm.
and so I'd just be like, hey, this is Andrew from Just Sell
Actually,
Homes. Saw you inquired about 123 Main Street. Are you looking at it for yourself or as an investment?
totally.
Super
Yeah,
simple.
shameless plug.
Yeah,
This is
it's great.
exactly what to say for real estate agents.
So I personally
And
actually prefer his like non-real estate specific one.
yeah, for me, I know I've met all three of these guys.
Yeah, they're great. Like
And
they're both all
Chris
brilliant.
Smith, his
Yeah.
spin on this is really valuable. He's the author of Conversion Code.
Yeah. Oh, he's great.
Yeah,
He like actually him and
I
Jimmy
worked
are
with
both.
Chris.
Yeah.
I worked with Chris and Jimmy as a client for
Yeah.
several years. You know, I
Yeah.
was part of the curator crew, and that was they had the top agents in the world at that time.
Oh yeah, like when they were really and I mean they still are as far as I know, humming along pretty good. Yeah, no, they really like they're some of the
Their rise was
inspiration
meteoric,
behind
right?
Just Sell Homes. So like when they were probably like 2 years ahead of me when they started Curator, and I started Just Sell Homes, and like I'm nowhere near their size. But like they did some really cool stuff. And I always loved their content.
I also think that there's some magic in good co-founders, and
Yeah,
like
they
you
have
with
because
Just
there's
Sell
three of
Homes, you
them.
were
Like,
on your own.
yeah, it's on. But then there's a third guy, isn't there? I don't actually know them. No, is it the two? I thought there was like a tech person that was like the third co-founder or something. I thought they were like the
Th
faces, and I don't know.
There could be
Uh,
somebody that I don't know,
but
but
they do very, very well. Then they play off each other well. At least, I mean, I
yep.
haven't seen their stuff in a long time, but
Also a worthwhile conference. Those guys actually like carry
yeah.
a conference with a pace.
Well, what I find too is when it's speakers that have done a lot of speaking hosting a conference, those are sometimes the best conferences because they've been to so many, they see what works, they see what makes a conference valuable. Um,
Part of why I'm a speaker is because it's so painful to see people suck at it,
yeah. Oh no,
right? I
going
would
to a
rather do the work and go and do it than
yeah.
sit through somebody who does it poorly.
I've had to, and I've learned like even because I used to host my own conference every year, which I'll bring back at some point. Is like you learn the hard way of like what you'll allow people you haven't seen speak do before. Like I won't even let someone I haven't seen before moderate a panel. Like,
Yeah, I think that
oh
being on a panel is like the starting position.
yeah. So actually, a couple of years ago, we looked. It was David Greenspan and I were starting a company called RE Speakers, which is going to be like half a speaker bureau, kind of for Canadian real estate speakers. And that was going to be kind of the way we approached it. Was like we vetted speakers, but like you had to, if you wanted to join, you had to start as a panelist and then graduate to breakout room, and then you have to graduate from there to keynote. But you'd have to be, once you're like in at the panelist level, you'd have to get a certain number of the breakout room speakers to say that you qualify to be there. And then to get from breakout to keynote, you'd have to get a certain panel of keynote people to say you've kind of graduated to that keynote level. And so it's
Mm.
like everyone's vetted at each stage to come up to the next one. But like moderating a panel is actually a lot harder than people realize. Um, because you have to manage the personalities. Because like you go to an event and there's some people who like they will dominate that conversation. Like if you put someone next to you and I who was like really meek and wasn't afraid, like even without trying to and not realize it, barely let them speak, right? Like
Yeah.
you
I
need the
also like I feel as though when I'm on a panel, I'm there to give a perspective. I will look at the other panelists
yeah,
and I will play the gaps. So like when I was on a panel with Deborah Beagle, like she runs one of the
yeah,
top
she's
teams in the
brilliant.
world,
Yeah, I
right?
like her.
And so I really like I know that she's going to play like probably a wider scope when she answers questions.
Yep,
And so I'm going to be tactical and practical because that will make a great panel. Like I look at it like playing with a band,
yeah,
and if I know the other speakers, I might be able to get an idea of how they'd kind of approach things,
yeah. And
and
you
then you
want
can deliver.
the best panels also, you can tell they've talked ahead of time. Because I've also been on the panels where we've all met as we're walking up on the stage and
Yeah,
have never
most
talked.
panels, I've never met the people before I get
Yeah,
there.
they go so much better if you have a conversation. Like even if you know, like you don't have to run through the questions necessarily, but be like, here's the topics we're essentially going to be covering. Because like what can sometimes suck with a panel where it's like they just go to one person each time they say something. Everyone's like, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. All right, next question. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Like you want
That
people to think
agreement
about takes.
bothers me. We should go a
Yeah.
different direction. We should make a debate. We should find
Okay.
two agents that are passionate
Yeah.
on opposing sides of something. And instead of having a panel of three people and a moderator
Yeah.
where they just kind of pass the ball back and forth, like something spicy would be good.
The one that I would love, like I don't know if you've ever seen it, but you might have. And I love this idea and I want to eventually do it. I have to get a film studio to do it first. Have you ever seen the interview of Shaq and Kobe in chairs and they're just sitting next to each other or facing each other with like this much space between them?
I've
And
seen clips of it.
I want to do that and just get like two top people in a room and on a topic and be like, go talk to each other. There's nothing else there, just you two. It's kind of it would be like this, but we're face to face in a room. You're given a topic and said, discuss.
Can we keep mixing in things? Could we also put hot ones? So
Yeah.
as they're eating, yeah.
That was the hot ones and comedians in the car getting coffee was the inspiration for over a pint.
Mm,
Because
yeah.
I love hot ones, how they get people's guard down.
Who would have
Like,
thought?
right? Like it's the heat. They are not thinking anymore. They're just thinking about how damn hot it is.
It
And then they
makes for
start
better
talking to like a
interviews.
real person. Yeah. And that's when they
Yep.
get interesting. So I was like, all right, I can't use the same thing because then I'm just ripping it off. And I was like, well, what's another way to get someone's guard down? I went with alcohol.
Mm.
Um, and alcohol works.
Yeah.
It gets most people's guard down, not everyone. Um, but and then like we've also done a bunch of episodes where like people don't drink. And I've now done this on sales calls to get people's like guard because like some people come into sales calls with like their guard up. And so I've had to learn little tricks of people who aren't drinking or letting it get to them. How do I get their guard down a bit? And the most effective one was shit, I forgot my next question. What was it? And then it flows into a more natural conversation from there.
Hmm.
Because they're like, as soon as you're like, you screw up, and now like it takes them out of the flow that they were in, like guarding what they're saying, and then you just continue a conversation at that point. But like I learned this, I did it a couple times accidentally where I didn't that wasn't the reason I did it. I was just like, shit, I actually did forget my next question. And then I
That's
noticed the
wild.
like next 20-30 minutes of conversation were completely different after that.
So these are kind of key even to the topic that we have today
Yeah.
is how do you basically get those conversations to be the conversations you want?
No.
And I think that just what you were leading to was a mindset shift. The mindset shift that I found is instead of trying to approach each call, each lead coming in, as I was going to be like, how do I sell this person a home? I started to look at it more like, how do I sort them?
No.
So when somebody comes in, like, how do I sort them? If I just sort them into buying a house now or not buying a house, I'm going to sort out almost all of them. So that's probably not the best method. So instead, what if I could get them to talk to me about their timeline? Well,
No.
then I could start to line them up. And if you wanted to buy a house right now, well, obviously that's the best for me. But if you're buying a house a month from now, I'd still like to work with you. And if you're going to buy a house 6 months from now, I just got to talk to you a few times between now and then to kind of like keep that together.
Yeah.
And then if you're going to buy a house a year from now, then it's just about organizing the frequency of calls. So I think that where most people are screwing up with online leads and with the leads they meet in person, because if you meet somebody at an open house, it's just a different way to receive contact information. You're in a better position because you met them personally. But when you're getting a web lead, you're getting something that you probably wouldn't have got by being in the same place at the same time with that person. But now you have to work it towards that.
Yeah.
But it's all about controlling those conversations and deciding how you want to sort. So what I wanted to make was a big factory where if you're going to meet with us in the next 10 days, we're not going to go 3 days without talking to you.
Yeah.
If you're going to be looking in the next 30 to 90 days, well, we're going to talk to you once every 2 weeks. If you're going to be going like 90 to 180 days, it's once a month. The lowest frequency is that we call you every 90 days, and that's for anybody in our database. Because if I haven't talked to you for 3 months, how would I possibly know that if somebody asked you on the street, like, hey, do you have a realtor? That
Yeah.
you would be like, yeah, it's Taylor. You're having real estate conversations. I'm either there or not. So that's where I think that most people fall off with leads is they don't understand the game. The game is to get to
Yeah.
the fifth phone call. Relationships start at the fifth phone call. If they're not buying right now, why are you flushing those leads? You need to find out when they're buying and keep positioning for that. Because let's say that everybody you talked to had the same timeline and it was far out. Let's say that where you tapped into the funnel
Yeah.
of real estate was just 6 months out. Well, that means that if you do this every day, you're going to have a 6 month lag and then you're going to sell a house every day.
Now, I mean, are you seeing with your leads it takes 5 phone calls typically?
It depends on where I find them in the funnel.
Yeah, because like,
So if we access somebody using content that is like basically like just talking about the problems that real estate solves really high in the funnel, well then they're not going to transact until next year and I need a frequency of contact with them in order to keep that happening. So we're going to talk like quite a bit.
yeah,
Whereas if somebody was going to basically take action next week, I'm going to be like talking to them, schedule the appointment, and then I'm going to meet them.
yeah. There's interesting, like I was reading this recently, whereas if you spend 3 hours of social time with someone, that's enough for someone to trust you with their money.
Oof.
And I would be, and that's where like apparently one of the original ideas of like all so many business deals are done on a golf course because it always
Mm.
brings it past that time, and it's just like the four of you at most together that builds up that social time needed for trust.
I
And
have a whole bunch of reasons that I think golf is the thing. I
yeah,
think the way that people are under stress when they play golf gives you insight.
yep.
Like
Oh,
I
you
knew
can tell a lot about a
companies
person.
that used to have dinner as part of their interview process,
See how they
like
treat the
CN
staff.
Rail.
Yeah.
Part of it was treat the staff. The other thing was when you received your meal, did you immediately season it with salt and pepper or did you taste it first? When you looked at, they would choose a restaurant that you hadn't been to before.
Yeah.
So they would watch you approach the menu and see what questions you asked the waiter.
Yeah.
Like there was they basically just wanted to see you and see how you would deal with some basic everyday stuff to get your vibe.
This
And
is
the
the,
same
you know,
thing on a
this,
golf course.
the
If you
Stone
shank
Sisters do
it,
this. Yeah.
really?
So they were telling me we did an interview for REM with them, and like one of the things they'll do in like the second or third interview is when the person shows up to their office, one of the sisters will just be like, I actually got to run a couple errands. Why don't you jump in the car with me and just come and we'll just chat while we're running the errands. And they get them in their car. They'll drive to like Walmart together and they'll go like pick up stuff they need at Walmart while doing the interview on the move to get them in a different environment to see how they react in these different environments. Right?
Hmm.
Like you do start doing those things. I was telling them like I love this. Like, I saw it on Twitter the first time, and it's where they call ahead to like the place they're going for lunch for the interview and tell them to purposely get one key item of whatever they order wrong because they want to see, are they just accepting it and to like not stir the boat and they're just going to eat it anyways? Are they going to get angry and send it back, or is it just going to be like a, hey, sorry, I actually ordered this. Do you mind if I switch that out? Right? Like, or is it like a polite, assertive, but like everyone has dignity and respect during the process? Because some people like fly off the handle when something's wrong, or they'll be like, fix this, and then turn to them and be like, can you believe they fucking screwed that up?
Hmm.
Right? Like they don't want that. So it's
Yeah.
that like, how do they react when that something is wrong?
Yep. And that's what I see in golf. How do they
Yeah.
react when they shank it? How do they react when the people behind say you guys are going too slow?
Yeah.
Those types of things would
Like
be
kicking
what
their
you
ball
kind of
back
want to
out.
see. Yeah, and the same thing I think that when you're first starting with clients, having some type of meeting that you know
Yeah.
clearly and they don't know is a great way to determine if it's going to be a good fit for a client. Like when we work with sellers, we have a seller's consultation and it's very mapped out,
Yeah.
like from what we get beforehand to the walkthrough and so on. And the same thing for a buyer process. So many agents are like, let's just meet at the houses. We'll just go shop for houses until you find a place. And they're like, man, these people don't value me. And it's like, you think? Like what you showed them is your job is to open doors, and now they just value you for somebody who opens doors. Like you didn't even show them the features of you.
Yeah.
Like they don't even know this car has a power moonroof. And there it is.
It's
So I think that having some type of, we call ours a buyer blueprint meeting,
yeah.
and it doesn't mean that you can't go meet them at a house. It just means that you should close that from there. And then you could sit down and be like, okay, let's talk about pre-approvals or pre-qualifications. Do you
Yeah.
know what a deposit is?
Yeah.
Like all of these things that will eventually hook you later. How can you iron those out?
Yeah. I
You
liked
know?
back when I was selling to do 1 to 3 showings and then the buyer's meeting. And the idea was like the 1 to 3 is also for me to see if I want to do business with them.
There you go. So with us, we do a natural intake of 2 for 1. So
Mhm.
if somebody calls on any property, we find another one nearby, and we say, hey, will you go
Yeah.
see this one as well? And we try to make it as casual as possible. Like, hey, there's another listing nearby that I'm going to go see. Do you want to
Yeah.
come with me? Like, I just like to preview stuff.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to get a couple of different effects. So, one, for those clients that I do want to pick up, I get double the amount of time with them. Time constraints is a big reason that you normally don't win appointments.
Yeah.
If they walk in that first house and they don't like it, they're going to be there for so short that it's unlikely you're going to be able to close.
Yeah. Now, how do you
Whereas,
book timing wise? Are you doing like half an hour offset? Because if say they
yeah,
do 5 minutes
I would
on
probably
one, you
book
gotta
them
wait.
both for an hour.
Yeah.
But like with newer technology and showings, like a lot of times it's windows. But that's what you would try to do is get 2 for 1. And then the other thing that they'll notice is if they called you on your listing, that you were willing to show another agent's listing, that you weren't just trying to get them in that house. That's also a key element to that.
Yeah.
And then the idea is need to use your time effectively with that short 2 for 1, and then closing into a buying blueprint meeting is kind of be my favorite way to do it is to talk about frequency of opportunity. So we just walk through 2 houses, and you're like, man, these are okay, but like, I
Is your
want to buy
connection loose on
another.
your mic? It's all scrambled now.
You're doing just a little bit of that earlier. I think it might be internet.
Maybe it's internet. Like mine's showing strong right now. It's just all of a sudden, yeah, you start getting like really it feel like it sounds like when someone's like the thing that's stuck in or yours is Bluetooth,
And
isn't it?
that's what I'm getting.
Oh,
That's
you're
what I'm
back
getting from
now.
you right now.
You're getting it from me. Okay, maybe I'll try.
Now you're clear.
Now I'm
No,
clear. You're back to
I
being clear.
okay. Well, I think it's a connection thing.
Must be. Yeah. No, you're perfectly clear now.
Okay. So
Oh,
what I was saying was we're going to pitch you on a meeting for a buyer's consultation, like whatever one that someone would choose. I would
yeah.
really talk about frequency of opportunities. So if you walk through 2 houses and you're like, "Dude, one of these are really interesting to me, but we had good conversations," then I would be like,
Yeah.
you know what? I think you need to figure out how often the properties that you like come to the market, the place you want to live at the price you want to pay.
Yeah.
Because if they show up like once a week, then let's wait for the best kitchen. But if they show up once every 4 months, probably want to know that because you're going to have to land that next one in order to hit your
Yeah.
timelines.
Yeah.
And then we would go through and have a meeting. It would be very similar to the reverse of a listing presentation.
And do you with buyers, and so I'm curious about too, do you have like or this seller as well, do you do a menu of services with like different packages they could pick from, or it's like you have BRA with one option, selling with one option?
No, and that was like a conscious choice because one, we don't seem to have much trouble with conversion.
Yeah.
The other thing is that we have a pretty specific ideal client profile. So we just made a product that they'll like.
Yeah,
and people that don't fit our ideal client profile don't choose that, can go choose another agent.
makes sense.
Yeah, we're really not trying to get all of them. Like if I make a database of my ideal client profile in a marketplace over time by collecting what leads on your timeline, just keeping general conversations going and not getting it unsubscribed from me because of applying pressure.
Yeah.
If I could do that, yeah,
Yeah. Well, I gotta see if I can fix something on my because I barely
we're
hearing
having the
half of
same
what you're saying.
problem.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I have a different. Hold on, one sec. This might boot me out for a sec. What I'm trying. One sec. Is this still working?
Yep.
Still, and now it's a lot clearer. All right.
Now it is a lot clearer. What do you change?
So I have my Wi-Fi, which I often use, but I have like a mesh system at home, and I
Mm.
have a piece that plugs into one of the mesh routers and then Ethernets it to my computer. So
Now
it's
I get a little
still,
bit glitched again.
yeah, I'm getting it back now too.
Yeah. But we
But
try
that,
to get like majority that we don't experience on most of them. So
yeah, but it,
there's so far in here, we may as well just oh, and my voice is muffled. Can you hear me
yeah,
okay?
yeah. It's like on yours, it's just very like garbled that it's coming through.
Yeah. Yeah, so I
Would you like?
imagine that,
Is that on mine too? Like, is it? Are you seeing it on both of us speaking, or is it just one of us? Because that might be one of our sides. Mine's good. So maybe it's on. Do you
how
have
it's fine now. Has my voice been
still like
muffled the
that?
whole
Yeah.
time?
No, it's just like in the last like 5, 6, 7 minutes, it started doing it, but it's in and out.
Hmm, weird.
Do you want to try
Everything seems to
without
be
the
different on
headphones?
my side.
Maybe see if that works.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Now you're good.
And how is it?
Perfect.
Weird.
So
I can
maybe it
actually.
just. Oh, and now you're frozen. Now you're frozen. There must be an internet on your thing. Um. Oh, now you're back. You hear me?
How are we doing now?
I can hear you good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now I'm on my blue mic. Maybe I'll use that
Yeah.
next time.
That's the same one that I have. Yeah. No, now you're like the other calls, we never had an issue. It's just, yeah. But now it seems perfect. So I think we're good.
All right.
That worked out. We're back. Back up and
We're
running.
back.
Yeah, so it's only like kind of catching. So I was trying to like play around with settings on my end. If you could tell, I was only like half listening there as I was trying to fix it on my end.
Pooja, is this better now?
I think so. On my end, it's way better.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Perfect.
Perfect. We're good. All right. So yeah. Um, I'd be curious. Well, Pooja, since you're engaging, where do you have any specific questions that you like? I have some stuff I always happy to chat with Taylor about. And I got about 15 minutes where I got to pick up the kids. My wife's under the weather, so I'm doing pickups today. And then after touch a truck, our town's bringing a bunch of big trucks to a place, and the kids can go play with like big dump trucks and stuff.
Cool.
So yeah, it's a cool new thing they have. So I'm gonna take them to that and see how that's like. Should be pretty good. But yeah, so like I'm curious, like this is one that I've started talking with a lot about people on the lead source topic is, and like we've talked about on the quality leads conversation we did, where it's like depending on the where you're getting the source of leads is how long that follow up should be, right?
Hmm.
Like that referral, your follow up's only about that long. An open house, it might be that long. A Google lead might be like that. A Facebook lead could be like that. Cold calling is all that, right? Like it's that, but like no matter what, you have to take that entire journey, like that distance. But are you doing it with your marketing and your sales? Then once you've generated the lead, where are they? Will tell you how far you have to take them over.
I think that
And
when you take a look at the maturity of most businesses in real estate,
yeah,
especially like when individual agents, I don't think that they will have tuned enough marketing to basically say, I'm drawing from this specific spot.
yeah,
So I think a big part of it is awareness. Like, are you aware of when you just get that Instagram DM from somebody that hasn't talked to you before, where you are and what your goals are and your next steps?
yeah,
Like for me, I know it like the back of my hand. Like in that first conversation when I get somebody on the phone, I'm trying to collect information on their family, occupation, recreation, and dreams, establish timeline, and open my lines of communication. So what I mean by that is that I'm going to ask you enough questions, likely using a house as a mask and saying things like, "Hey, the house you inquired on has 3 bedrooms. Is that enough for everybody?" Now you're going to tell me about your family. Or, "Oh, this is over in this neighborhood. What's drive time like for you from there?" Now you're going to tell me about your work.
No.
If you lived over here, would that change what you do on the weekends? That's going to be recreations. And if I want dreams, I'm going to say, how does this fit into your long-term plans?
Yeah.
And I'm going to collect information about you because that's going to help my future follow-up. But I'm going to try to choose how far I go based on how comfortable you are. I don't want it to be invasive. So I'm going to go back and forth and also rapport build when you give me an answer, like you might mention that you've got kids. I'm also going to say, I have kids. We're going to talk about
Oh
the
yeah.
ages of our kids. We're going to hit all those marks. But then
Activities
I'm
they
going to
do.
ask a question like, hey, when do you want to be in your new house?
Yeah.
And because you have kids, I might even tune that question to you and say, like, okay, are we trying to hit the school year for the new place?
Yeah.
Now I'm on your team. Like it's statements like that I
Yeah.
normally find like I really win.
Do you
When
know
this
which school
person
zone you want to be in or catchment area?
Yeah, but even when we just like agree that the mission is based on the getting the kids to school, as soon
Yeah.
as you feel that personal touch, that's actually when we start to align. And for me, I always talk about my teammates or I always talk about my clients like their teammates. So
Yeah.
I would be on Team Foliato, right? And that's like when you get drafted, when they give you the jersey, is like when they're like, okay, you understand the assignment. We're getting our kids to that new school division. Let's go. When everybody else you talk to was just like, okay, which house? Can I help you?
Yeah. And if they ever kind of come back, you can, or like pushing back on something or being unreasonable, you can kind of bring them back on target with well, if we want to get them in before that school year starts, here's what we got to
Right.
do. It's a
Yep.
good callback later on. Like I found it's interesting with like my lead sources for even just sell homes is we actually, for example, like I get a lot of referrals from other people. And what I've noticed is even just referral sources, each one completely changes how I have to do the call. Because some have just been told you should talk to that person. Others come in, I know who says like this is the guy, like you'd be stupid not to hire him. Just literally ask him where to send the money. And it's like, and then other people like, but if they come in for something like that with no pre-knowledge of me, then the sales call is always going to be a lot harder. Whereas the people just come in direct from our content are the easiest ones already because they're already essentially pre-sold. So
Mm.
it's interesting to watch, especially as we bring in like a new referral source, how to fine tune the process to make sure we're matching the way they've been handed off to us from that other person and
Yep.
adjusting. And it's a big, like a lot of adjustments have to happen in that early stages of a new source for us like that.
Totally. And this is where your sales training should come in. Like you should basically anytime that you're doing it, working with a new lead source,
Yeah.
start to try to tune to it. The earlier that you tune to it, the better it'll work. But just like you mentioned when we opened today, that if you don't tune to it, you're about to waste a whole bunch of resources.
Oh yeah, like everyone needs, and it's like one thing we're gonna start doing more of. We've done it like here and there with some clients because a lot of like the campaigns we run, they understand. Stand, but anytime we bring in something brand new, we'll film a recording from the perspective of the consumer, walking through what they're experiencing at each step of it,
Ooh, that's great.
so that they can understand it, and then also share it with the people on the team doing the follow up.
Yeah,
So
because
be like,
I think that a lot of people in that inside sales role, they're basically like, "Oh, these people totally like this house," and it's
yeah,
like, "No, no, 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 no." They like
yeah.
responded to
I
a
just wanted more
signal.
photos.
Yeah, they responded to a signal. They only spent 3 seconds on this page.
Yeah.
Like it's not what you think it is at all.
And some of them might not even realize they became a lead. Like Facebook lead ads, cheapest way to get leads, and it's not close. You give me a listing, a single image, and that's it. Like I can get you $1 to $3 a lead pretty consistently.
Right.
But like half, like not half, maybe 20 to 30% of those leads, if we don't do a high intent form, aren't even going to realize they became a lead. So the
Mm.
first thing is, who are you? How did you get my number? I didn't opt into anything. And that's an objection you need to know how to handle.
Okay, so this is where a lot of people don't understand where the struggle is when it comes to online leads. Like I remember when I did my first online lead experiment, I got 130 or 122 leads for $7.
Yep.
And that would have been like a long time ago because I'm old.
Yeah.
But
You can't get that anymore.
but as soon as I did that, I realized that I hadn't found the challenge yet. Because
Yeah.
if everybody could do this, then like all the clients would be taken already, you
Oh,
know?
it's all on the conversion. Like once you know how to get leads, it's not hard. Like
Hmm.
lead gen is actually very, very easy. It's either going to be time or money or both.
But
Uh,
then you mentioned an intent form, which
yeah.
is the evidence of a struggle, which means is that's your first move towards filtering, right?
Yep.
Because you're going to find people that are basically like not motivated at all. They just like to look at real estate. Like you'll find a lot of that. Just like responded, just thought it might have been in their neighborhood, a number of different reasons. But then what you want to find is like what you can test for in advance is motivation
Yeah.
or intent. And then once you get on the phone with them, your job on the sales side is to solve for ability. How did the meeting at the lender go? Right?
Yeah.
Like those types of conversations. So knowing that if you were doing high intent forms, that you can see their motivation and you're getting on the phone to solve for ability will totally change the conversations.
Yeah. And this is where a lot of people need to adjust is like where each point, how that impacts the person coming in, right? Like the questions you ask isn't just to get you information, it even changes how they might think about you coming in. They can change their perception of you. Like if you want the cheapest leads, you get rid of every barrier in the way of them becoming a lead, but now you got to do so much after you get the lead. And
Don't
like,
raw dog the internet.
so I sometimes will do that, but I will not call those leads. But this like I won't call those leads that come in,
I got
right?
you.
Like this is where I think, and this like we talked about before,
So
like the
you would do it
MQLS
in
code.
order to build an audience.
I'm building an email list,
Yeah, that's different. So
right?
now
I'm
you're using different techniques.
Yeah, I want to build a big ass email list and then have my
Mhm.
automations and follow-ups determine who are the leads, right? So it's like I take like most industry you kind of talk between leads and prospects, which is like a lead is a lead on a prospect. A prospect is someone looking to move in the next, let's say, 6 months. That's a prospect. So that doesn't mean they're going to use you, but they're moving in the next 6 months or 3 months. Some people, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yep.
A lead is a lead on that. Me
Right.
just collecting as many emails as I can is the step before leads. I'm just building that.
Okay, so a lead is an inquiry,
Yeah.
but if
But you don't
they
know their
have a
intent.
desire to buy a property but no timeline, that's called a
They might not
dream.
even have a desire to buy a property. They might just want to just, it's their neighbor's house and they wanted to see how they did it. They want
Yeah,
to
so
see
there's going
how
to be
they did the
some people
interior.
like that, but
Yeah.
even if they were interested in real estate, if they don't have a timeline, it's a dream, not a goal.
Yeah.
So as soon as you establish timeline, now you're starting to basically be able to determine,
Yeah.
is this a prospect? So would
Yeah.
if we were to define it, would we basically say that a lead or a prospect is a lead that is interested in real estate and has a timeline?
Yes. They might not
Timeline
use
might
you.
change,
Yeah.
but if they're willing to talk to you about a timeline, I do agree that that is a qualifier.
Yeah. And most people when they say quality leads, they want that, but they're generating leads. Like they're trying to generate prospects, but they're generating leads and get upset when the leads aren't prospects.
So
So
they missed a step though. What they
yeah.
did is they raw dogged the internet without using a filter later,
Yeah. So
right?
this
Where
is where
you would do
we
that,
yeah.
you would use unfiltered to use an email list to filter.
Yeah.
Whereas with me, I use online filters like intent forms and things like that because I want to make a call list.
Yeah. And you can still do that if you get the super unqualified and just build your email list. Like if depending on again, if I went back to sales today, I often use this analogy like what would I do? Obviously depends on budget. One that I would actually love to do with the right budget is buy the local newspaper and create the biggest media hub for the town of everything going on in the community. And then I would just embed an IDX on that site. So I would go hire an editor, I'd hire a writer, and I would pump out so much content. All the ads would be to grow that mailing list of what's going on in the community. And then I'm throwing my own real estate ads in there with an IDX platform that drives people in. And
So how
now
much would a Bugatti like this cost?
it's not as much as you would think.
Tell me more. What do you think it would be? Like what
You
order of
could,
magnitude?
if you could hire the right people, you could probably get this done. And again, it's still not cheap in the 10 to 15K a month range, which is still a lot. But when you think of what you're getting, because now what you can also do is you start selling ads to other businesses. So now you're going to have complementary businesses subsidizing your cost. And now you get to a point where you're selling for free, where you're getting all these leads at like no, like, or you can even make some profit on it. Right. And like that's where you start getting into this really fun. But like initially, yeah, you need like the REM model, right? Like I have an editor who I have full time, but right now we have a full time editor. Just Sell Homes does like the social and email, and then we use freelance writers for the rest.
Hmm.
So like officially, REM only has one employee, and then it's like actually no, two, one and a half. We have a part time ops person who coordinates advertisers. But if you think about it like that, that is one and a half people, and depending on what you pay them, and then between a website's cheap, like a WordPress website, it's cheap. Mailchimp cheap, like yeah, three like somewhere in that 10 to 15K range, depending on what you pay people. I'd overpay for a good editor because they make the difference on how much time you have to put into it. But I would
Hmm.
100% go back today and buy a local, like I'd try to just buy the existing ones. And if not, I'd just start my own, but a local news thing that covers the community. And then you just become the primary advertiser. Basically, like you're going to sell ads to yourself. And then over time, let other mortgage people, lawyers, other service businesses start buying ads too. But you just basically make yourself the exclusive realtor. And then you can even, all the IDX on the site all funnels to you. And
Woo.
I bet if you did that, you would start, like it would take some time, but you would very quickly become the top person there. And like that would be so hard to unthrone once you get that humming. Because like no one's going to compete with an SEO when it's not just real estate terms you're ranking for everything in town.
Hmm.
And now you're going to really blow it up. Then you just have content upgrades. Download this guide on how to buy a home, download a guide on how to sell your home, right? Find out what your home would sell for, search homes for sale all throughout the site. Um, the people, and it's like our trusted partner.
Hmm.
It's an
Yeah, that's
interesting
pretty sweet.
model that I'd love to see someone do it well.
Let's keep talking about it.
Yeah,
And let's keep talking about this. We had I know that we're talking to a couple of our friends about coming on.
yeah,
We're also going to allow this to be call in.
yep,
So for some episodes, like probably the next episode, I think, because we don't have a guest, we may
yeah,
ask some folks to come in. Oh
yeah,
yeah, like and keep in mind that if we there's definitely a bunch of people that I want to talk to and I want you to
yeah,
talk to, so we can land that from here. So we'll sort that out stuff out by text. I want to make
yeah.
sure that you get to your kids on time.
Yeah. Do you know we could be pretty fun for us to do to each other is surprise guests that the other doesn't know about till they're on there. Let's just mess with them. It's like, oh yeah, I invited a friend today.
All right.
Let's do it.
Hey, get on.
Yeah, we'll just pick some up. So, anyways, thanks everyone for tuning in. So as a reminder, if you're watching it, these are booked 2 to 3. Really, it's more 2:15 to 3:15. Zoom doesn't let me book it by the 15 minutes because Taylor has something right before this every week.
I'll
So
try to move things if we're going to consistently do it here.
if you're,
I'll be close.
yeah. So like some days will be here a couple minutes after, but up to 2:15, it might take, but we'll make it work. I can always talk for 10, 15 minutes if I need to. Not a problem. But anyways, appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll get the recording up and we're gonna again start doing this every week. Feel free to drop in, ask questions. If you want to even come on as a guest, send us what you'd like to talk about, and we're happy to look at anyone. Our only goal is provide value and have interesting discussions to people. Value
Yeah,
don't mean
yeah.
just
And
like
when
making
you were
money.
thinking about being a guest, we're not talking necessarily about being an expert, but basically
Yeah,
saying, "Hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm trying to work on, and
yeah,
we'll help."
yeah. Like bring a challenge to us, and we'll help you. But give it to us ahead of time because there's a chance. Like, say it's something that like this person over here would be a way better answer than us. We might bring them up.
Yeah,
Um,
especially if it's a special challenge. Like there's some people
yeah,
that we know that would like to crack those puzzles.
yeah, and it'd be fun. So it could be good. Anyways, appreciate everyone. We'll chat soon. See you next week, Taylor.
Talk soon.
All
Cheers.
right, bye.